Hi, everybody. So we're back again for another training video in our Powered Leader Planning series. So I'm super excited. Today we're going to talk about your daily tasks. We'll talk about the importance of a daily checklist, what that is and how to build your own. And then we're going to talk about the whole concept of 3 big rocks pieces, how you can use that to be way more productive while actually committing to do fewer things. So if you're interested in finding about how to boost your daily productivity, then stay tuned and I'll share all these tips and even more with you. So stay tuned. So welcome those of you that are new to the Empowered Leader Planning Series and the Exhale and Thrive community. I'm Sarah Francescuti. I'm an executive leadership coach, and I specialize in helping leaders and organizations transform from the inside out. And so one of the key base pieces is really having our daily foundation schedule set up to set us up for success, really. And so when you don't have this, you can feel overwhelmed. You can feel like somebody else is driving the bus. You're kind of just along for the ride. You can feel like you're not showing up as the self that you want to be. You may not be able to be creating as much time to mentor your teams, for example. Maybe you feel like you're just drained at the end of every day and have nothing left for your family. Maybe you want to create time for an important project in your work, or set aside some energy and time in your personal life for volunteering, or any of that kind of thing. The secret comes down to how you fill your days and how you prioritize your time. And so I've spent many years, and to be honest, a bit of a confession, many Saturdays, Sundays, evenings, audiobooks for years focused on productivity. And so I've created my own kind of process where I pulled things from here and there and everywhere to create a little bit of a system for myself that can really make it easy to be massively productive while actually working less, right? So there's more time for rest, there's more time for rejuvenation. And so then when you do come into the action focused times, you're massively productive. And so one of the keys to doing that is having a daily system. If you've missed my weekly review and planning system video, I'll link it below so you can check that out as well, because they all kind of fit together into a beautiful puzzle of scheduling and planning. And so I'll link that all below so you can follow along with those videos. I'll also be doing a monthly planning video as part of this series as well, so stay tuned for that. And if you'd like to subscribe, you can either follow me on Facebook if that's where you're watching this video, subscribe on YouTube, or if you're already in my email list, then lucky you, you're going to get everything automatically served to you in your inbox every week when I send out new videos. So if you want to get in on that, you can actually subscribe to my email list by downloading the Empowered Leader Monthly Planning Kit, which is what we'll be talking about this week. So if you want to download that for free, you'll also get on my email list, so you'll hear about all of the fun different things that we're doing in the Exhale and Thrive community. Of course, I'm here to serve leaders and as an executive coach, but also personally, I just have such a passion for teaching, for productivity. I'm a little bit of a productivity geek, if in some way, if you want to call it that. And so the ability to be able to share this with you is fun for me. It's fun to kind of share about these things. So if you have your own system or tips that you find work well for you, I'd love to hear them in the comments below as well, so we can support each other. I can learn from you. I get to share with you what's worked for me. And I invite you to take whatever we cover today, pick and choose what works for you, and create a system that is unique to supporting what you need best. But I'll be sharing some productivity tips along the way. So if you have the Empowered Leader checklist, I want to first talk about the whole idea of a big rocks. You may have heard this before. It's a very much a foundational productivity concept, but let me explain it to you just in case it's a new idea or to refresh your memory on it. So the concept is, if you imagine a jar of water, I actually have a water bottle here, so we'll actually have a little demo to look at. So if you imagine this bottle, it was full of water. If we tried to put some sand or gravel or even some pebbles in there, eventually the water will get displaced and it would fill out, especially if it was already full. Obviously, I've been drinking it today, so it's not full. But the idea is, if you start not with a jar full of water, but you start with an empty jar or bucket or whatever, and then you put some of the big rocks in. Now here we couldn't put very big rocks, but just imagine the concept. So if we were to put some rocks in, maybe maybe bigger rocks like this in this case because of the size of the mouth, but you just follow along with the idea. Bigger rocks. Then we could maybe put in some like pea gravel, you know, smaller kind of little gravel that could fit in, and it would filter down amongst all of the kind of the gaps right around those bigger rocks. Then you could still fit in some sand probably. So you can pour a little bit of sand in there too, and it will filter down in between the other little bits of spaces and gaps. And then you can still have room for water. But if we had tried to put all of that stuff in and then water, it wouldn't have worked. It would have just overflowed and we would have a big mess. So when you use that concept in productivity, the idea is that you prioritize your big rocks first. And I like to work with 3 a day. Sometimes if I'm feeling enthusiastic, I'll put 5, but I most of the time only get 3, sometimes 2, maybe even 1 of the tasks. But if I got 1 of those big rock tasks done, I'm ahead. I consider it a win for the day. And so I'm showing up tomorrow having moved towards progress, either actually completing a task, or if it's a bigger project, I've moved things forward. The challenge many leaders face is that there's so much noise, there's so much activity, whether it's virtual meetings now in the virtual kind of work environment, many gazillions of emails, you've got projects, you've got staffing, you've got people interrupting you when you do try to have a lunch break, you've got personal appointments and whatever else is going on in your life. All these things need to be taken care of, whether it's kids and pets, the house, your relationships, your connections with the community. All these obligations really start to pile up. And so one thing we won't really cover today is understanding what your intentions are, what your priorities are will really help in filtering out what your big rocks are. If you're not even sure, that's okay. A coach can help you with that. You could take some time to kind of journal through it. But today I want to focus on, you know, how are you going to show up, assuming you already know what your values, your goals are, your big picture kind of mission for this kind of chapter, this 90 days, this next season in your life, in your work, in your business, in your impact, all of that. So when you're looking at your daily review, I like to really think about what are my top 3 or maybe 5 tasks or actions that I need to do that day that are super important, that will be the most important things to do. They'll maybe take a little bit more time, they might take a little bit more focus, and that they will help me win at the end of the day. If I complete this thing, I will have made a good impact. If I get 10 things done, but they're not really that important, then I still have these other things here, these big rocks sitting here, and they never got dealt with. And so that can really help deal with overwhelm by knowing what you are putting your attention into is actually getting done. And then from there, I'll actually number them. If I say I have 5, 3 or 5, I'm actually going to go through and number them. So I don't know if I have an example here I can show you. A lot of them have personal details on it. So I'll describe it to you. So imagine you have 3 items, 1, 2, 3. The first one I tend to write down now because I've been doing this so long, it's normally my top priority, number 2, number 3. But sometimes if I end up putting 5 down and then a couple things come up during the day that I need to do, I'll also put that on my to-do list for that day. And then I'll number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which seems a bit simplistic, but sometimes the basics and simplicity are what are super powerful. And so once I know number 1 is going to be my number 1 thing, I don't need to think about it anymore. I can just turn that part of my brain off and I can focus on number 1. Once number 1 is done, I come back to the list and go, oh, there's number 2. I guess I'll do that. And sometimes I don't want to do that thing. I would much rather do something else over here. But because I already made that commitment to myself that that number 2 thing is number 2, I better do that next, it keeps me focused. It keeps me on track and it keeps me committed to myself, which is super powerful. And then the next step you're going to want to do, step number 2, is really to look at your calendar for the day. So what are your appointments? What meetings? What tasks do you have to do? You might even want to take those daily big rocks and actually plot them on your calendar. Where are the action item going to happen? And really commit that hour or that 15 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever it's going to be, to do that task. That itself is really, really powerful as well. And then really, I want to get into the daily tasks that we do all the time. The stuff that we do and we don't really even think about it. And so I've actually put a daily work task checklist here for you, partially for myself to keep it in mind as I'm going through my life. You know, I can check back in and see, yeah, that is a really good way to work it. Or maybe, you know, now that I've been using things this way in my current role, maybe I want to adapt how I'm showing up day to day because it might work better with some tweaking. So a couple things that I found is my first 2 to 3 hours, I like to work on focused project work and high priority tasks. I'm a morning person. Your focus work might be afternoon or even evening. So understanding that about yourself will make a difference as well. So the first thing I like to do is check my top 3 to 5 action items. And honestly, I write them down the night before. I don't normally do them in the morning. I do them at the night before when my brain is still on work. So when I come in the morning, it doesn't take as long to kind of ramp up and get momentum going. Then I do my top creative brain-based tasks or projects first, the things that I need to really put thought into. And here it says no email until midday. Honestly, I do a quick scan through. So I'll do my daily review of what we're talking about today. Then I'll do actual quick review of my emails. And then I'll maybe give myself half an hour, maybe an hour. And what I end up doing currently, and I've done in the past as well, is kind of do an initial scan and then I'll prioritize. So I actually use the color coding system in Outlook for my day job. And so I will red flag things that need to be urgently actioned. Then I categorize. So my current categorization is red are kind of action. Orange are more like small action pieces. Yellow are my actions completed and need to file pieces. And then I have some other colors for some other tasks, personal and training and other sort of general information. Your job may be very different. When I was in my executive corporate role, where I was doing admin and money and all of that for the executive office, it was finance was green, HR was yellow, I think, and admin might have been, maybe HR was orange and admin was yellow, something like that. And then I had my urgent tasks were red. And so I found then that way I was able to work in buckets. So you'll find your own way of doing that, but that's one that I find works really well for me. But then I won't come back and do actual email actions until I've actually got some of my big rocks done, because I want to save my brain power for those important things. And one thing I also want to talk about is a Pomodoro timer for challenging projects, larger tasks, or if you want to be super hyper focused. That's another productivity kind of 101 piece, is the Pomodoro timer kind of concept. So the idea is something is going to expand given the amount of time that you give it. So if you don't give yourself a time frame to get something done, it could take days. You could spend tons of time on it. You get distracted. You don't really care. You eventually get to it. But if you give yourself a focused time, like I give myself 30 minutes to do a task at work, for example, and then I have to get it done in 30 minutes because I've got to do something else. And so what that does is it makes me hyper focused. And the Pomodoro timer is that kind of concept where you can actually, I think about it linked in the video comments, but I'll make sure I include that. You can do focus work for 25 minutes, then you take a 5-minute break. Then you do another 25-minute focus and 5-minute break. And then you do that a couple more times, I think, and then you take like a 15-minute break. What that does is you're giving yourself a really tight time frame to get focus work done. So that means you're not checking email, you're not texting, you're not getting up and making yourself a cup of tea. You wait for that stuff for that 5-minute break. And so it's super powerful. I use this especially when I was doing a lot of writing for my MBA years ago, or now when I'm currently doing bigger kind of projects. Focused attention makes a big difference. So that was one of my tips I wanted to share with you today. Then the remainder of the day, I like to spend on general medium or lower priority tasks because I find my focus is not quite as strong. I'm still there, but it's not quite as, full of energy. So that's when I'll check and respond to emails, and I'll check in with my staff. I like to do that morning and afternoon. So for those of you that have teams that you need to monitor and manage, I highly recommend a check-in regularly. Previously, when I was, again, working this executive office, I had staff and it was busy place. They were busy, we were busy. If I didn't take time to check in with them in the morning, I wouldn't see them till lunchtime. And so I actually committed to myself to check in with them every morning. It was actually one of my big rocks. I would do that first before I would go plug into my tasks for the day. And then I would do the same thing in the afternoon. So it did two things. It helped me connect with them before I got distracted, but it also gave them a kind of consistent timing to know when they were going to be able to connect with me. I know some managers do kind of bilat meetings. Every 2 weeks, they meet with their team members, one-on-one, and then they can have that kind of thing. So having an established routine can be really powerful for your teams so that they know when they can connect with you beyond, kind of when it's urgent. But this also slows down those kind of interruption times, because they can wait for 2 hours till you reach out and check with them in the afternoon, for example. Depending on who you're managing, you may not need to be that involved, but at that point, the kind of work we were doing, the kind of staff, we were actually all working in a building together down, along the same floor, down a hallway. So it was really easy to do that check-in. I'd make any phone calls, have meetings, then book appointments, follow-ups, outstanding issues, delegation follow-up, all of that kind of stuff. I will also use afternoons and kind of end of the week Fridays to do any training or mentorship or coaching with myself and my staff. So that's something that I like to do. And then on here, for this little handout, I have your daily top 3 to 5 big rocks and tasks, and then your nice to-dos, or if you want to practice working on your gratitude, you can write things that you're grateful for. And then separate from that, I also have a personal daily morning and evening routine checklist. And I found this practice really helpful. So just creating it was really helpful, because it sort of helped me identify, what do I do every day? If I wanted to add some habits in and change my morning or evening routines, having an explicit list was really powerful. And it helped me sort of see, well, how much time does this need? Am I getting up and going to bed at the right times to give myself space for all of this? So it's really powerful. I've included that for you as well, in case you want to try creating one of your own. I've also found a daily routine checklist was really good for my teams. So it was really explicitly clear what they were expected to do on a daily basis. And if that wasn't being done, then we had something kind of speak to. So it was really powerful. And then I guess the final thing I want to mention to you, I've talked about kind of a lot of the routine things and a lot of kind of basic productivity basics. But the final thing I wanted to share with you is this concept of active rest. And I've become more and more conscious of that as I'm looking to be highly productive and really maximizing my time and effort, but in an efficient way. So I'm not just always going, but I have time for rest too. And so this concept of active rest is really powerful. And the idea is doing something physical while you're in action, your mind is resting. A lot of my work is brain-based, right? Or people-based or emotion-based, because I do a lot of coaching work with clients in my day job and my business, right? So having active rest to regenerate. I like to go for a walk. That's when I would do kind of get up and go get a cup of tea, different types of things. I'm working from home now, so unloading the dishwasher over lunch, for example, is an active rest thing. Still being productive. I'm still taking care of something, but it gives my brain a rest period. I know exercise is really great for that. Yoga, those kinds of things are also great, but see what works for you. Where can you incorporate active rest so that you're giving yourself a break and then coming back more powerfully productive and able to focus? And the final tip I have for you, because I guess it's a tip kind of day today, is to take time off every hour. So I talked about the Pomodoro technique of 25 minutes on and then a 5-minute break. There's a lot of research out there that says that 50 minutes out of every hour is good for work. And then you need to take a break. So every 50 minutes, you should be taking a break to maximize your productivity and, maximize your human potential. So I encourage you to try it yourself, but also try it with your staff. Try having shorter meetings and seeing if that is more spacious for you. Maybe instead of having an hour-long meeting, you have 45-minute meetings instead, and then it gives people the meeting time, but then there's a 15-minute break to either actually have a rest, do some active rest, go take action on the actions that came out of the meeting immediately, or give them a bit of a breather before they go into their next meeting at the top of the hour, versus back-to-back all the time. It's not healthy. It's not productive for ourselves or the people that we're leading. And personally, I believe in having a thriving workforce, having a thriving community, having thriving leaders, And we can't do that if we're pushing ourselves all the time. And if we're not doing it for ourselves, we're then going to be expecting the same from our teams. And that's not going to help us get anywhere. So I could totally go off in a massive tangent there, but I think we'll keep it at that today. So this idea of a daily routine, what steps do you do every day? How do you prepare for your day? And then I encourage you to use this daily big rocks 3 kind of actions approach. It sounds simple. It's super powerful when you actually use it. So it's one of the things that I know people have always come back to me and said, hey, thanks. Once I've applied that, it was transformational. So I pass it on to you and invite you to enjoy that as well. And our next training video in this series is going to be about how you look at your month. So same sort of approach, but it's going to be a bigger chunk, right? Instead of looking at a day like we did today, we're looking at the whole month. So I look forward to chatting with you again soon. And I really hope that you enjoyed this video. So we'll talk to you again soon. Bye. And one of the things I forgot to mention, this daily review process takes me 5 minutes, maybe even less. It doesn't take long to think about the top priority things. You know what they are. Writing them down is very powerful. If you're not writing them down, I highly recommend you do it. You could put it on a sticky note. I actually use an actual planner that has kind of the weekly stuff laid out. And I have my to-do list at the top and then my actual meetings through the day. And that makes such a difference having it written out. So then when I am halfway through my day, I can just quickly glance at that task. I can do it, move on to the next thing. So anyway, little bonus tip for you. Have a great day and we'll see you again soon.